Good evening, my dear friend, and welcome back to the Sleepy Story. Before we begin tonight, I wonder, where are you listening from right now? Perhaps you're already tucked beneath a warm blanket. Perhaps a lamp still glows softly beside you. Or perhaps you're listening as the last sounds of the day slowly fade away. Wherever you are tonight, I'm grateful you've chosen to spend these quiet moments with me. Tonight, we journey far beyond the familiar worlds of Greece and Rome, and to a forgotten island kingdom that flourished thousands of years ago beneath the Mediterranean sun. A civilization of magnificent palaces, vibrant frescoes, daring sailors, mysterious goddesses, and legends that still echo through history. Its memory survived only in myths of labyrinths, sacred bulls, and a creature known as the Minotaur. So take a slow, gentle breath. Allow your thoughts to drift away from the present, and let us travel together into one of the ancient world's greatest mysteries. Whenever you're ready, let us begin. Before history is written, it is remembered in stories. For the island of Cree, a place whose true past was long forgotten, that memory took the form of a dark and epic myth. It was a tale told around hearth fires in Athens and whispered in the courts of kings, a story of divine pride, monstrous punishment, and heroic sacrifice. That legend began with an act of divine defiance. The tale was told of a powerful and arrogant king named Minos, who ruled a great island empire from his palace at Konos. To prove his right to rule, he prayed to the sea god Poseidon to send him a sign. Poseidon obliged, and from the foaming waves emerged a magnificent pure white bull, which Minos was meant to sacrifice in the god's honor. But the bull was so beautiful that Minos, in his greed, decided to keep it for his own herds and sacrificed a lesser animal in its place. This insult to a god could not go unpunished. Poseidon's revenge was swift, cunning, and terrible. He did not strike Minos down, but instead cursed the king's wife, Queen Pasiphae, with an unnatural and overwhelming desire for the sacred white bull. Consumed by this divine madness, the queen sought out the most brilliant inventor in the world, a man named Daedalus, who had taken refuge in her court. She commanded him to build her a hollow wooden cow, which he could hide inside to trick the animal. The result of this cursed union was a monstrous creature, a being with the powerful body of a man, but the head and tail of a ferocious bull. They named him Asterion, but the world would come to know him as the Minotaur, the Bull of Minos. Horrified by this monstrous stepson, a living symbol of his own sacrilege, King Minos once again turned to Daedalus. He commanded the inventor to build a prison from which the Minotaur could never escape. Daedalus, using all of his genius, constructed the labyrinth, a vast, bewildering maze of winding passages, dead ends, and confusing halls so complex that anyone who entered its depths would become hopelessly lost and eventually be devoured by the beast that lurked at its center. The story then shifts to the mainland, to the city of Athens. In an act of revenge for the death of his own son in Athens, King Minos waged war on the city and conquered it. As a term of their surrender, he demanded a horrifying annual tribute. Every year, the Athenians had to send 7 of their finest youths and 7 of their finest maidens to Crete. There, these 14 young souls would be cast into the labyrinth, a periodic sacrifice to feed the monster and remind Athens of its subjugation. For years, this terrible tribute was paid. But then, a hero emerged. Theseus, the brave son of the Athenian king, volunteered to be sent as one of the youths, vowing to his father and his people that he would enter the maze, slay the Minotaur, and end the tyranny of Crete forever. When the young hero arrived at Nod, he was presented before King Minos. There the king's daughter, the princess Ariadne, saw him and immediately fell in love. Desperate to save him, she secretly met with Theseus and gave him 2 gifts: a sharp sword to fight the beast and a simple ball of thread. Theseus entered the labyrinth, tying the end of the thread to the great stone doors. He unwound the ball as he ventured deeper into the suffocating darkness, the roars of the Minotaur echoing through the stone corridors. In the heart of the maze, he confronted the monster, and after a ferocious battle, killed it with the sword. His path to safety was not marked by sight, but by touch. Following the thin, taut line of Ariadne's thread, he found his way back out of the darkness and escaped Crete with his fellow Athenians. And so, the myth ends with the hero's triumph and the monster's death. For 3,000 years, this tale of heroes, gods, and curses was all that was known of the ancient world of Cree. It was a story so powerful, it seemed impossible that any historical truth could lie behind it. But it was there, waiting buried in the earth, waiting not for a hero with a sword, but for a man with a spade. As the 19th century drew to a close, a new age of discovery was dawning, an age of archaeology. And the man who would unlock the secrets of Cree was a brilliant, wealthy, and supremely confident English academic named Sir Arthur Evans. Evans was the keeper of the prestigious Ashholin Museum at Oxford University, and he was not initially hunting for a monster's lair. His quest was for something more elusive, a lost system of writing. He had become fascinated by small, milky white seal stones he had found in the markets of Athens. They were intricately carved with tiny, enigmatic symbols that looked like a form of prehistoric script, far older than any known Greek writing. Cretan women called them milk stones and wore them as amulets to bring good fortune. But Evans believed they were the key to discovering Europe's first written language. He followed the trail of these stones to their source. In the 1890s, he arrived on a rugged and wild Cree, an island just emerging from centuries of Ottoman rule. He traveled the countryside not as a tourist, but as a detective, buying more of the small seal stones from local villages. The clues began to point to one location, a large, unassuming hill covered in olive groves near the main town of Herakleion, a place the locals called Kefala. Others had suspected this hill was the location of the legendary palace of Konos, including the famous discoverer of Troy, Heinrich Schliemann. But bureaucratic hurdles and local politics had always stood in the way. Evans, however, possessed a unique combination of academic obsession and personal wealth. Where others saw obstacles, he saw a prize to be won. He patiently negotiated and eventually purchased the entire plot of land, becoming the sole owner of the hill and whatever secrets it held. Finally, in March of the year 1900, the time had come. Evans arrived at the site with a team of over 100 local workmen. The olive trees had been cleared. The air was filled with a sense of immense anticipation. For 3,000 years, the labyrinth of the myth had stood as a dark and forbidding monument in the landscape of the imagination. Now, Arthur Evans stood before a simple hill of earth and rock, ready to knock on the door of that lost world and see if anyone was still at home. The initial work was grueling and dusty, clearing away centuries of soil and scrub. For the first few days, they found only the tops of massive, ancient walls, hinting at a large structure, but revealing little of its character. There was a constant nervous excitement in the air. Was this just a rustic fortress? Or was it something more? The answer came with a sudden, brilliant flash of color. A workman's pickaxe struck something soft, and upon careful cleaning, a fragment of painted plaster was revealed. As more earth was gently brushed away, a picture began to emerge. It was a life-sized depiction of a young man with long, flowing black hair and a noble profile carrying a long, conical cup. This was the famous cupbearer fresco, and its discovery was a revelation. This was not the art of a primitive people. This was the work of a sophisticated, confident culture with a masterful command of form and color. Energized by the find, the teams followed the walls of the fresco and soon uncovered an intact sunken room. As they cleared the debris, they found gypsum benches lining the walls, and then set against the northern wall, they saw it a magnificent high-back throne carved from a single block of gypsum. Its form was simple but regal, with a gracefully curving, undulating back. Though the room was small, the throne gave it a palpable sense of power and ceremony. As they carefully cleaned the walls around it, the scene became even more magical. The plaster was painted with vibrant fresco of stylized palm trees, and on either side of the throne, two mythical griffins creatures with the body of a lion and the head and wings of an eagle. They lay in a field of lies, serving as serene, supernatural guardians for the empty seat of power. For Arthur Evans, a man steeped in the heroic legends, there could be only one conclusion. In a moment of high dramatic conviction, he declared to the world that he had found the throne room of the legendary King Minos himself. Around the same time, another crucial clue emerged. All over the palace, carved into the great stone blocks of the walls, the workmen found the recurring symbol of a double-headed axe. Evans knew this sacred symbol as a labies. In a flash of inspiration, he made an intellectual leap that would define his entire discovery. He connected the word labaris to the mythical labyrinth. The labyrinth he proposed was not just a maze. Its name literally meant the palace of the double axe. The discoveries of those first few weeks were staggering. Evans had unearthed a throne room fresco of stunning beauty and a powerful symbol that seemed to be the etymological root of the myth itself. He had come to Cree looking for a few words on ancient stones. Instead, he had found the throne of a king and had given a new historical meaning to the legendary labyrinth. The myth was becoming more real with every spade full of earth. The discovery of the throne room was the key that unlocked the door to a lost world. But as Arthur Evans and his teams continued to dig over the next few seasons, they realized they hadn't just found a room or even a royal villa. They were uncovering an architectural entity of almost unbelievable size and complexity. The excavation expanded from a few trenches into a vast project covering 6 acres, revealing a structure that was not so much a single building as a sprawling, self-contained city. The entire complex was organized around a huge, rectangular central court, a massive open-air paved space that served as the very heart of the palace. This was the grand stage for Minoan public life, a place where one can imagine great religious festivals were held, priestesses processed, and the daring bullers performed their sacred death, daying acrobatics before the assembled crowds. Clustered around this central hub in a seemingly chaotic but brilliantly planned arrangement was a bewildering network of over 1,000 rooms, halls, workshops, and shrines. This was a multi-storied metropolis built with genius down the gentle slope of the Kefala Hill. Some sections of the palace reached up to 5 stories in height, creating a stunning series of terraces, balconies, and verandas connected by a disorienting web of grand staircases. One of these, the Great Staircase, was an architectural marvel, descending multiple levels to the lavish residential quarters. Its path illuminated by the ingenious Minoan invention of the light well, a kind of open-air shaft that funneled sunlight and fresh air deep into the heart of the massive structure. To wander the excavated corridors was to understand the origin of the labyrinth myth. There was no single grand entrance. Long, winding passages would suddenly turn a sharp corner, leading down one staircase and up another, opening into unexpected colonnades or small, hidden courtyards. It was a place designed for those who knew its secrets, and a place where a stranger could easily become lost. This physical reality, Evans was sure, was the seed of the legend. But this was no prison. It was a bustling, vibrant center of an entire civilization, with different wings dedicated to every function of a sophisticated society. In what Evans called the royal apartments, he found luxurious living quarters, including a room with the famous dolphin fresco and a flushing toilet connected to an advanced drainage system of terracotta pipes. In the industrial quarter, he found workshops for potters, painters, stone carvers, and jewelers. And in the vast magazines, he found the economic engine of the palace rooms, lined with giant clay jars, or pythoi, capable of storing over 200,000 gallons of olive oil and wine. This was the evidence of a powerful bureaucracy of scribes, officials, and priests overseeing the wealth of a trading empire. The Palace of Konos was the intricate living heart of the Minoan world, all housed under a single sprawling roof. Its complexity was not for entrapping a monster, but for supporting thousands of people, from the royal family and their court to the priests, artisans, and administrators who ran the machinery of the state. Evans had not simply found a building. He had uncovered the stunningly complex anatomy of a lost and brilliant civilization. As the full, staggering scale of the Minoan palaces was revealed, archaeologists were confronted with a profound and startling mystery. In an age of brutal endemic warfare, where every great civilization, from the Hittites to the Egyptians, built colossal fortifications, these vast centers of wealth and power were conspicuously missing one thing: walls. There were no great ramparts, no defensive towers, no fortified gates designed to repel an invading army. This absence was not an oversight. It was a deliberate choice, a defining feature of Minoan culture that set them apart from every other power in the ancient world. This architectural openness paints a picture of a remarkably peaceful society. The palace at Kossuth was not a fortress looming over its subjects, but an accessible heart that flowed into the surrounding town. Its great west court likely functioned as a public square, and its entrances were designed to welcome processions, not to repel invaders. This pattern repeated at the other great palace sites across the island, like Phistos and Malia, suggests a long period of internal stability, a unified Cree from the constant civil warfare that plagued other lands. For centuries, the island appears to have enjoyed a Pax Minoa, a Minoan peace that allowed its unique culture to blossom. But this internal peace does not explain their confidence against external threats. The real answer to the puzzle of the missing walls lay not on the land, but in the sea. The Menowans were the first and greatesty, or sea power, of the Bronze Age. Their security was guaranteed by the one weapon no other culture could match: a massive and sophisticated navy. The most vivid evidence for this comes from the nearby island of Thera, where the flotilla fresco, preserved in volcanic ash, shows a magnificent fleet of sleek, elegant ships sailing between island towns. These were not just warships. They were the vehicles of a vast trading empire that projected Mon influence across the entire Aeon and beyond to Egypt and the Near East. The Minoan fleet was their true wall, a flexible, proactive defense that made static stone fortifications redundant. It was their navy that controlled the sea lanes, protected their merchants, and could intercept any potential invader long before they ever reached the shores of Cree. Their power looked outwards towards the horizon, not inwards, in fear of their neighbors. This supreme confidence, born from naval supremacy, allowed them to invest their resources not in grim fortifications, but in magnificent art and architecture. The uniqueness of this approach is thrown into sharp relief when compared to the civilization that would eventually succeed them: the Mycenaeans of mainland Greece. The Mycenaean world was one of paranoia and war. Their centers, like Myene and Tiryns, were grim citadels built for siege. Their palaces were hidden behind immense defensive walls constructed with enormous, uncut boulders so massive that the later Greeks, unable to imagine how they were built, claimed they were the work of the mythical Cyclopes. Life in a Mycenaean fortress was dark and defensive, the architecture of a people who lived in constant fear of their rivals. The open, unfortified palaces of the Minoans, therefore, were not a sign of weakness or naivety. They were a statement of unparalleled power and confidence. They spoke of a civilization so secure in its mastery of the sea that it did not need to hide behind stone. It was the architectural signature of a unique and seemingly peaceful Bronze Age superpower, a stark and poignant contrast to the violent, fortified world that was destined to follow. If the walls of the Minoan palaces could speak, they would do so in a language of brilliant, breathtaking color. The Moans were masters of the art of the fresco, a difficult and demanding technique where pigments are applied directly to wet lime plaster. As the plaster dries, the color is chemically bonded to the wall, becoming a permanent part of the architecture itself. This method requires incredible speed and confidence. The artist has only a short time to work before the surface dries, with no room for error or correction. The survival of these vibrant paintings for over 3,000 years is a testament to the immense skill of the Minoan artisans. To walk through the excavated corridors of Konos is to be surrounded by the ghosts of this lost artistic tradition. One of the grandest examples is the procession fresco, which once adorned the main entranceway to the palace. Here, a long, elegant line of youths is depicted against a deep red background. They are shown with the characteristic long, curling black hair of the Moans, wearing elaborate kilts and carrying ceremonial vessels, seemingly as part of a grand religious rite. Leading them is the famous cupbearer, a life-sized figure holding a conical rhyton, or ritual cup. His solemn grace, a perfect introduction to the formal world of the palace. In the more private residential quarters, the art becomes more intimate and joyful. In what Arthur Evans named the Queen's Megaron, he uncovered perhaps the most beloved of all Minoan artworks, the dolphin fresco. In this stunning, immersive scene, a playful troop of blue dolphins leaps and dives through a stylized sea, teeming with fish and spiky sea urchins. It is a work of pure, unrestrained delight, a celebration of the marine world that surrounded and sustained the island of Cree. There is no rigid formality here, only fluid, naturalistic motion. From this same palace came a small but iconic fragment, a portrait of a young woman, Evans nicknamed La Parisienne, for her seemingly modern sophistication. With her elaborate, curled hair, her large, heavily outlined eye, a coquettish smile on her bright red lips, and a distinctive, sacred gnaw tied at the back of her neck. She is a tantalizing glimpse into the world of the Minoan elite. We do not know who she was, a goddess, a priestess, a queen. But her enigmatic expression has become a symbol for the entire mysterious civilization. Of course, no discussion of Minoan art is complete without the iconic Bulaping fresco. From a purely artistic standpoint, it is a masterpiece of dynamic composition. It captures a moment of impossible frozen motion with the three slender, graceful athletes vaulting over the back of a massive charging bull. The artist uses the color conventions of the time, painting the male figure with reddish-brown skin, and the two female figures with pale white skin to clearly distinguish the participants in this dangerous and sacred dance. When we look at this visual language as a whole, what it tells us is as important as what it emits. The frescoes speak of a people who loved and revered nature, who engaged in complex religious ceremonies, and who valued elegance, color, and vibrant motion. But unlike the art of Egypt or Assyria, there are no scenes glorifying a single, all-powerful king. There are no grand depictions of military conquest or vanquished enemies. It is the art of a peaceful, prosperous, and seemingly joyous people. Because their written language is lost to us, these frescoes are the only voice the Minoans have left. It is a beautiful and elegant language, but one that leaves their deepest secrets unspoken. The vibrant fresco of Konos reveal a world of grand ceremony and a deep connection to nature. But it is perhaps in the smaller, more intimate objects, the art that the Minoans could hold in their own hands, that their unique genius for craftsmanship is most apparent. The same love for fluid, dynamic life that they painted on their walls was also spun onto their pottery, carved into their seals, and hammered into their metalwork. This was a culture that did not just create art, they lived within it. The Minoans were masters of the potter's wheel, a technology they perfected to create ceramics of almost impossible thinness and delicacy. During the early palace period, they produced a style of pottery so sophisticated it was exported and prized throughout the Mediterranean, from Egypt to the Near East, known as Kamarus ware. These vessels are characterized by their eggshell-thin walls and their striking decorative scheme. The potters would cover the vessel in a glossy, dark black slip, and then, using brilliant white, red, and orange pigments, they would paint swirling abstract patterns of spirals, rosettes, and stylized flowers that seemed to dance around the curved surfaces of the pottery. It is an art of pure, energetic abstraction, beautiful and almost psychedelic in its fluid motion. In the later Minoan period, this love of abstraction gave way to a breathtaking naturalism. The so-called marine style is the ultimate expression of the Minoan celebration of the sea. Potters would now leave the background the light color of the clay and paint their subjects in a dark, rich slip. The most famous example of this style is a small vessel found at Palicastro, known simply as the octopus flask. The artist, a true master, painted a wonderfully detailed octopus whose 8 tentacles wrap organically around the globular shape of the flask, perfectly uniting the decoration with the form of the object. The empty spaces are filled with images of seaweed rock and sea urchins, creating a complete and dynamic underwater scene. It feels as though you holding a small piece of the Aegean Sea itself in your hands. This incredible attention to detail is found on an even smaller scale in their most personal art form, the seal stones. These were the very milkstones that first set Arthur Evans on his quest. Carved from tiny gemstones like agate, carnelian, and jasper. These seals are miniature masterpieces, tiny windows into the Minoan world. Under magnification, they reveal incredibly detailed scenes. Priestesses with upraised arms in ecstatic ritual. Powerful bulls, mythical griffins, leaping dolphins, and even detailed portraits of their sleek, high-prowed ships. These were not just beautiful objects. They were functional tools of a complex administration, pressed into wet clay to seal documents or containers, acting as an individual signature. From a grand fresco that adorned a palace wall to a tiny seal stone that could be held between 2 fingers, the touch of the Minoan artist is unmistakable. Their work is a constant celebration of the natural world, a rejection of rigid, static forms, and a testament to a level of craftsmanship that was unparalleled in the Bronze Age. The art they left behind reveals a people with a uniquely joyful and sophisticated eye for beauty, a culture that sought to fill every part of their lives, from the monumental to the mundane, with vibrant, living art. To understand the Minoans is to grapple with a profound silence at their very core. Unlike the Egyptians with their Book of the Dead, or the Mesopotamians with their epic poems, the Minoans left behind no grand religious texts to explain their beliefs. Their undeciphered script keeps their prayers and myths a secret. To understand their gods, we must look at the silent artifacts they left behind, which point to a spiritual world profoundly different from that of their neighbors and successors. Their places of worship were not the colossal state-sponsored temples of Egypt, or later Greece. Instead, the Minoans found the divine in the natural world. On the highest peaks of Crete, like the sacred Mount Jos, which overlooks archaeologists, have found peak sanctuaries. Here, in open air enclosures, ordinary Moans would make arduous pilgrimages to leave thousands of small clay votive offerings, figurines of themselves in prayer models of their livestock, and clay replicas of afflicted body parts. Left with a plea for divine healing, they also worshipped in the deep, dark interiors of sacred caves, places they saw as direct conduits to the underworld and the powerful earth deities who governed fertility, death, and rebirth. This reverence for the earth seems to be linked to the most striking feature of their religious art: the overwhelming dominance of female figures. Across fresco seal stones and sculptures, women are consistently depicted in positions of power and authority, acting as the primary intermediaries with the divine. They are shown leading processions, receiving offerings, and presiding over sacred rituals. Men, in contrast, are often shown as attendants, musicians, or simply as worshippers. The most potent and famous symbol of this female, sea-centric faith was discovered by Arthur Evans in a stone-lined hidden pit at Konos, which he called the Temple Repositories. Buried amongst other ritual objects, he found a set of breathtaking figurines crafted from fans, a glazed ceramic. The world would come to know them as the snake goddesses. The most complete figure stands with an intense, wide-eyed stare, her arms outstretched. In each hand, she firmly grasps a writhing snake, while others coil around her body. She wears the height of Minoan fashion, a tight, open bodice that deliberately exposes her breasts, and a long, elaborate, flounced skirt. Atop her tall headdress sits a small feline, perhaps a leopard, calmly observing the world. She's an image of immense power and mystery. While her exact identity goddess or high priestess is unknown, her symbolism is deeply rooted in ancient traditions. The exposed breasts are a clear sign of fertility and nourishment, the very source of life. The snakes, creatures of the earth that shed their skin, are universal symbols of renewal, rebirth, and the potent magic of the underworld. The feline marks her as a mistress of animals, a powerful nature deity in complete command of the wild world. She's the embodiment of a great mother goddess, a life-giving earthly power. This focus on powerful female figures led Arthur Evans and many early archaeologists to a radical conclusion that Minoan society was a matriarchy, a world ruled by women. The evidence is tantalizing. Women are depicted with a freedom and prominence that is unheard of in the art of the later patriarchal Greeks. However, most modern historians are more cautious. While it's clear that women held a remarkably high and respected status in Minoan religious and ceremonial life, there is no definitive proof that they held formal political power. Still, the art speaks for itself. It reveals a civilization whose understanding of the divine was primarily female. The snake goddess, with her unblinking stare, remains the enigmatic face of this lost faith. She is a powerful reminder of a different way of seeing the world, a world that celebrated the power of the earth and the divine feminine, and a profound contrast to the male-dominated pantheons of the civilizations that would soon follow. If the snake represented the mysterious, chthonic power of the earth, its male counterpart, the bull, was the embodiment of Rinsa, untamable natural force. This magnificent and dangerous animal is the second great pillar of Minoan art and religion. We see its image everywhere, intricately carved into tiny seal stones painted onto pottery and masterfully crafted into ceremonial drinking vessels or writ. The most pervasive symbol of all was the horns of consecration, a stylized carving of a bull's horns that adorned the roofs and shrines of the palaces, marking a space as sacred. This was clearly a creature of immense spiritual importance. The grand stage for the bull's role in Minoan life was likely the great central court of the palaces. Here, surrounded by the high frescoed walls and crowded balconies of the palace, the Minoan elite would have gathered to witness their most spectacular and death-daying ritual, the famous bull leaping. Our only clear window into this mysterious practice comes from a single iconic fresco found at the Palace of Konos. It is a masterpiece of dynamic motion, capturing a scene of what appears to be an impossible acrobatic feat. The fresco depicts a massive bull charging across the frame in a flying gallop, its feet not touching the ground, a convention used to show incredible speed. In a stunning display of coordinated teamwork, 3 slender, long-haired athletes interact with the beast. At the front, a figure with pale white skin, the Minoan artistic convention for a female grasps the bull's immense horns, seemingly preparing for the leap. In the center, a reddish-brown-skinned male figure is in mid-vault, executing a perfect, hands-free backflip over the bull's spine. And at the rear, another white-kinned female figure stands with her arms outstretched, positioned to catch the VR as he lands. For a century, this image has been the source of intense scholarly debate. Could it be a literal depiction of a real event? Modern acrobats and bullfighters have argued that performing a somersault over the back of a fully grown charging bull is a physical impossibility. The moment an athlete grabs the horns, the bull's natural instinct is to jerk its head upwards, which would impale the var instantly. So what are we really seeing in this vibrant painting? Some believe the fresco is a schematic diagram, a kind of instruction manual showing the 3 key stages of the leap in one continuous image, rather than as a single simultaneous action. Others proposed that the athletes approached the bull from the side, using the momentum of its charge to vault sideways across its back. It's also possible that the Menowans used younger, specially trained animals, or that the entire scene is a purely symbolic, mythological representation and was never actually performed. Whatever the reality, the bulloping ritual was clearly a high-stakes performance, a sacred and dangerous dance that would have required years of training and immense courage. The risk of being gored, trampled, or killed must have been incredibly high. It is in this practice, the spectacle of elite youths and maidens risking their lives against a bull in the heart of the labyrinthine palace, that we can see the clearest historical seed for the later Greek myth of the Minotaur. The legend of 14 Athenians being sacrificed to a bull monster in a maze is almost certainly a distorted, fearful memory of this very real Minoan ritual. The true meaning of the bull leaping ceremony may forever be a mystery, but the art it inspired speaks volumes. It reveals a culture that did not cower before the awesome power of the natural world. Instead, they chose to confront it, to engage with its most dangerous forces, not with brute strength, but with timing grace and breathtaking athletic skill. For the Menowans, the bull was the ultimate test. And in this sacred dance with death, they celebrated their unique and fearless spirit. We have explored the open palaces, the joyful art, and the enigmatic rituals of the Moans. But a fundamental question remains. What was the source of the immense wealth and security that allowed this unique and seemingly peaceful culture to flourish for centuries? The answer did not lie within the fertile fields or mountains of Cree, but in the vast blue expanse that surrounded it. The Minoans were above all else masters of the sea. The key to understanding their civilization is the concept of athaloscracy, a word derived from the Greek thealassa for sea and dratia for rule. They were the first great naval power in European history, and their influence was built on the decks of their magnificent ships. From fresco carved seals and clay models, we can see what these vessels looked like. They were sleek, crescent-shaped ships with a single square-rigged mast and a high, curving stern, powered by both sail and tons of rowers. They were swift and maneuverable, capable of plying the sometimes treacherous waters of the Aegean Sea. These were the instruments of a vast and lucrative trading empire. From their harbors on Cree, these ships sailed forth, carrying the high-value products of Minoan craftsmanship. Their exquisite kamaris ware pottery was a prized luxury, good exported as far as Egypt and the Levant. They traded fine textiles, expertly crafted bronze weapons, and most importantly, the agricultural bounty of Cree itself. Vast quantities of olive oil and wine sealed in large, distinctive clay jars. In return, their ships brought back the raw materials that their island lacked. They imported tin from Anatolia and copper from Cyprus, the two essential metals needed to forge bronze, the lifeblood of the age. From Egypt and the Near East, they brought back gold ivory and precious stones like lapis lazuli to be worked by their skilled artisans. Their most important and powerful trading partner was the ancient kingdom of Egypt. In the tombs of great Egyptian viziers and nobles, like the famous tomb of Recomere in Thebes, we find stunning proof of this relationship. Here, wall paintings depict delegations of foreign men explicitly labeled by hieroglyphs as the Keft, a name believed to be the Egyptian word for the Minoans. These figures are shown with the iconic, long black curling hair and patented kilts seen in the frescoes at Knossos. They carry gifts for the pharaoh, and among the objects they bring are perfect depictions of Minoan artistry. Golden, bull-headed drinking cups and distinctive long-necked pottery. This is a remarkable confirmation from an outside source showing that the Minoans were not an isolated people, but were major players on the world stage, respected enough to bring their finest goods to the court of the most powerful king on earth. Minoan power was not limited to trade alone. They projected their culture across the Aeon by establishing settlements and colonies on other islands. The most famous of these was the city of Acroy on the island of Thera, a veritable Minoan city in miniature with multi-storied houses, beautiful fresco, and advanced plumbing. Other outposts on islands like Rhodes and Kitha served as vital trading hubs, securing the sea lanes and creating a network of Minoan influence that spanned the sea. This is the ultimate explanation for the world without walls. The Mano-Anthaloscracy was the source of their wealth, the guarantor of their peace, and the foundation of their unique, outward-looking culture. Their navy was their greatest weapon and their best defense. Why build massive stone walls to hide behind when your true fortifications, your wooden walls, were the hulls of your ships, ensuring no enemy could ever reach your shores? This supreme mastery of the sea was the engine of their civilization. But as we shall see, their dependence on it would also be the seed of their ultimate vulnerability. While the discovery of the Grand Palace and its treasures captivated the world for Arthur Evans, the most significant finds were far smaller and more unassuming. We must remember that his entire journey to Cree began not as a search for a labyrinth, but as a quest for a lost language sparked by the mysterious symbols he had seen carved into ancient seal stones. And in the burned-out ruins of Nos, his original hope was realized beyond his wildest dreams. In several small chambers, his team uncovered the remains of the palace archives, hundreds of flat, pillow-shaped tablets of sun-dried clay. These were not grand historical chronicle or epic poems. They were the mundane, day-to-day paperwork of a complex bureaucracy preserved for millennia only because they had been accidentally baked hard in the fire that destroyed the palace. These tablets were the administrative records of the Minoan world. They were inventories of wine and olive oil, lists of livestock, rosters of palace personnel, and records of offerings made to unseen gods. The writing on them consisted of a mix of elegant, linear symbols representing phonetic syllables, simple pictograms for commodities like a chariot or a stalk of wheat, and a clear numerical system. As Evans painstakingly sorted through the thousands of fragments, he discerned two distinct but related scripts. The older, more fluid script, which he correctly assumed was the native language of the Minoan civilization, he named Linear A. A younger, slightly more rigid script, which was found only in the very final layer of destruction at Konos, he called Linear B. For 50 years, both scripts remained a tantalizing enigma, a silent language from a lost world that scholars could not decipher. The code was finally broken, not by a university professor, but by a brilliant English architect and amateur linguist named Michael Ventris. Having been fascinated by the mystery since he was a schoolboy, Ventris dedicated years of his life to the puzzle, applying methodical techniques he had learned as a codereaker during the Second World War. He meticulously cataloged the symbols, tracked their frequency, and made educated guesses about the underlying grammar. In 1952, he had his monumental breakthrough. Working from the assumption that the language might be an early form of Greek, he plugged in phonetic values derived from Cretan place names found on the tablets. Suddenly, the strange symbols began to form recognizable, archaic Greek words. The decipherment was a stunning success. The language of Linear B was Greek. This discovery was earth-shattering, and it rewrote the history of the Bronze Age. It was the final, definitive proof that in its last phase, the palace at Knossos had been taken over and administered by the Mycenaeans, the first Greek speakers from the mainland. But in solving one great mystery, Ventris had confirmed another. If Linear B was Greek, then the older script, Linear A, was certainly not. This was the true lost tongue of the Minoans themselves, and it remains one of history's greatest unsolved riddles. To this day, we cannot read it. As if to underscore this profound mystery, another unique object was found at the southern palace of Phistos. It is a single beautiful fired clay disc, about 6 inches in diameter, known as the Phistos disc. Both of its faces are covered in a spiral of 45 distinct symbols, which were not written, but stamped into the wet clay with individual seals. It is a form of primitive printing, a technology that would not be seen again for thousands of years. Its purpose, its meaning, and its language remain completely unknown. And so we are left with a tantalizing silence. Thanks to Michael Ventris, we can read the final accounting records of the Greek Achaemenians who ruled Knos at its end. but the true voice of the Minoans, the language they used to name their kings, their goddesses, and themselves, remains locked away in a script we cannot read. They are a civilization we can see in stunning detail, but whose own words we cannot yet hear. In the final golden years of the 17th century BC, the Minoan civilization was at its absolute zenith. Their palaces were centers of high art. Their trading fleets controlled the Aegean, and their influence was felt from Egypt to the Greek mainland. It must have seemed like their peaceful, prosperous world would last forever. But their greatest threat was not a rival empire. It was brewing silently just 70 miles to the north on the beautiful island of Thera, today known as Santorini. Thera was a jewel in the Minoan trading network, home to the bustling port city of Acroy, a place of wealthy merchants and stunningly frescoed houses. But the beautiful island was in fact a sleeping volcano. The first signs of the coming apocalypse would have been a series of violent earthquakes, a final warning from the underworld. The archaeological evidence at Akriri is remarkable. While beds are overturned and pots are smashed, no human bodies have ever been found in the ruins. This suggests that the inhabitants, terrified by the tremors, gathered their most precious belongings and fled in a mass evacuation. They escaped the city, but they could not have imagined the scale of the destruction that was about to be unleashed upon their entire world. The eruption, when it finally occurred, was one of the most violent explosions in human history. Many times more powerful than the famous eruption of Krakatoa, with a cataclysmic roar that would have shattered the silence of the Bronze Age across hundreds of miles. The mountain on the blew itself apart. A colossal pillar of black ash pumice and superheated gas was blasted more than 20 meters into the stratosphere, creating a mushroom cloud that blotted out the sun. Across the Aegean day was turned into an unnerving perpetual twilight as the sky turned from blue to a sickly yellow, then to a suffocating gray. For the city of Akriri, the end was swift. A thick rain of pumice and ash fell from the sky, entombing the city and preserving it perfectly. A Bronze Age Pompeii, frozen in time. But the most devastating event was yet to come. The heart of the volcano, having violently emptied its magma chamber, collapsed in on itself. The entire center of the circular island fell into the sea, creating the massive crescent-shaped bay, or Kaler, that defines Santorini today. This collapse displaced an unimaginable volume of water, giving birth to a series of colossal tsunamis that raced outwards in all directions. On the northern coast of Crete, the Manawans would have witnessed the terrifying omens. The sky was already dark. A terrible world-shattering roar would have echoed from the north. Then they would have seen the sea itself pull back in a monstrously low tide, receding far from the shore and exposing the seabed in a terrifying, silent warning. And then it came. An unstoppable wall of water, moving with impossible speed, smashing into the unfortified coastal towns, the harbors, and the prosperous villas. The great Minoan fleet, the wooden walls of their empire, the source of all their power and wealth, was likely shattered in its own anchorages. The ship splintered into driftwood in a matter of hours. When the waves finally receded, the world was irrevocably changed. The sun remained a dim, hazy disk in a gray sky, a volcanic winter that would last for months, if not years. A thick, gritty layer of white volcanic ash began to fall like a slow, poisonous snow over the eastern half of Crete, choking the fields, ruining the crops, and contaminating the water sources for livestock and people alike. The Minoan world had not been defeated by a human enemy. It had been assaulted by the raw geological power of the earth itself. Their command of the seas was broken, their food supply was poisoned, and their confident, joyful worldview was surely shattered. The long, peaceful summer of the Minoan civilization was over. The question was no longer how they would thrive, but how they could possibly survive. In the immediate aftermath of the Thera eruption, the Minoan world was irrevocably scarred. The northern coast of Crete lay ravaged by tsunamis, and a ghostly blanket of white ash covered the eastern half of the island. For many years, modern historians believed this was the final dramatic act, a swift and total knockout blow that annihilated the Minoan civilization in a single season. It was a simple and compelling story. But the truth, as revealed by decades of careful archaeology, is more complex and perhaps even more tragic. This was not a sudden death. It was the beginning of a long, slow twilight. The archaeological evidence is clear. At coastal sites like Palicastro in eastern Crete, excavators found a thick layer of volcanic ash and pumice along with the chaotic debris of buildings smashed and washed far inland by the force of a massive wave. The tsunamis were real, and their destruction was devastating to the Minoan ports and coastal communities. The Asheville, too, would have triggered a severe agricultural crisis in the eastern part of the island, leading to several years of failed crops and widespread famine. But crucially, this is not the story of the entire island. At the great palace of Konos in central Crete, and at other major sites in the south and west, archaeologists found no significant ash layer and no evidence of destruction that could be dated to the time of the eruption. The heartland of the Minoan civilization, it seems, survived the cataclysm physically intact. Life in a wounded and altered form went on. The palaces were not leveled by earthquakes, and the cities were not buried. The wounds that would ultimately prove fatal were not to the Minoans' buildings, but to the very systems that sustained their unique way of life. The first and most critical blow was to their northern harbors, destroyed, and a significant portion of their great trading fleet smashed in its anchorages. Their mastery of the sea was broken. The intricate network of trade that brought in vital raw materials like copper and tin and exported their valuable oil and wine was crippled. This economic catastrophe would have been immediate and profound. The second wound was likely psychological and spiritual for a people whose art and religion were so deeply intertwined with the beauty and bounty of the natural world. The eruption would have been a terrifying and incomprehensible event. The sun vanishing from the sky, the earth shaking, and the sea rising up to destroy them would have been seen as a sign that their world was out of balance, that the gods themselves had turned against them. Such a crisis of faith could have fatally undermined the authority of the priests and rulers who were believed to guarantee divine favor. This weakening of Minoan power created a vacuum in the Aeon. On the Greek mainland, the younger, more aggressive, and more militaristic Mycenaean civilization was growing in strength. As the Minoan grip on the sea lanes faltered, the Mycenaeans were able to expand their own influence, sailing trading and raiding, with a new freedom. The eruption of Thea then did not kill the Minoan civilization. It delivered a wound from which it would never fully recover. For the next century and a half, the Minones endured in a state of diminished capacity. Living in a long twilight, their economy was shattered. Their population likely weakened by famine and social unrest, and their legendary confidence was gone. The great, peaceful, and seemingly eternal civilization was now vulnerable, a shadow of its former self, waiting for the final push from the new rising power across the sea. The Menian warriors who took control of Konos were conquerors, but they were also apprentices. As a younger, less sophisticated, and primarily martial culture, they were clearly in awe of the ancient and brilliant civilization they now dominated. They did not erase the Minoan world entirely. Instead, they absorbed its art, its technologies, and its symbols, adapting them to fit their own warlike worldview. In doing so, they became the crucial bridge through which the echoes of the lost Minoan civilization were transmitted to the later Greeks, and ultimately to us. The most visible area of influence is in the art and architecture of the Mycenaean palaces on the mainland. At sites like Chios and Tiryns, the Mycenaeans adopted the Minoan art of fresco painting to decorate their own halls. But while they copied the technique, they fundamentally changed the subject matter. The peaceful, joyful scenes of the Minoans were replaced with the cultural obsessions of the Mycenaeans' grand military processions, bloody boar hunts, and warriors clad in intimidating bronze armor and boar-tusk helmets. The graceful leaping dolphins of Nos gave way to grim depictions of siege warfare. It was the art of a culture that lived and died by the sword. Mayan kings and nobles clearly prized the superior skill of Minoan artisans. In a warrior's tomb at Vaphio on the Greek mainland, archaeologists discovered a pair of exquisite golden cups believed to be the work of Minoan craftsmen. They perfectly illustrate the meeting of the two cultures. One cup depicts a violent scene of bulls being captured in a wild, chaotic hunt, a classic Mycenaean theme. The other shows bulls being peacefully and skillfully lured into nets with the help of a decoy cow, a scene of harmony with nature, a classic Minoan theme. In religion, the Mycenaeans worshipped the ancestors of the familiar classical gods. Zeus, Haya, and Poseidon are all named in the linear B tablets, but they also adopted potent symbols from the older Minoan faith. The sacred horns of consecration and the double acts or labres begin to appear in Mayan shrines, suggesting a blending of the two belief systems. The powerful female, sea-centric world of the snake goddess faded, replaced by the patriarchal pantheon of the Greeks, but its symbols endured as powerful echoes. Perhaps the most enduring legacy of all was in the realm of myth. The stories the later classical Greeks told about their own heroic past were set in this Menaian era. And through these myths, the memory of Minoan greatness, though distorted, was preserved. The legend of the labyrinth is almost certainly the Greeks' attempt to describe the vast, confusing, and magnificent palace at Konos. The myth of Daedalus, the master inventor and craftsman, is a clear echo of the unparalleled artistry of the Minoan people. And the story of King Minos, the mighty king who ruled Athaloscracy, or Sea Empire, is a direct memory of the formidable naval power that the Moans once projected across the entire Aeon. The Minoan civilization, therefore, did not simply vanish. It became a foundational dreamlike memory for the Greek world that followed. Its culture was absorbed and transformed by the Mycenaeans, who acted as a bridge between the Bronze Age and the Iron Age. And the later Greeks looked back upon this entire period as a lost golden age of heroes with a faint but powerful memory of Crete, its sea kings, and its labyrinth at the very heart of their own origin story. The Minoans provided the rich artistic soil from which the earliest roots of Western civilization first grew. While the spirit of Minoan culture lived on through its influence on the mainland, the physical world that created it was destined for a final violent end. For roughly 75 years after the conquest, the Palace of Knossos continued to operate under the rule of its new Greek-eking Menian masters. Then, around the year 1375, the end came. A catastrophic fire, far more intense and widespread than any that had come before, tore through the entire 6-acre complex. The grand staircase collapsed. The magnificent fresco were blackened and shattered, and the great red columns that had held up the roofs for centuries were consumed by the inferno. The palace at Konos, which had stood for over 500 years, was reduced to a smoldering ruin, and this time it would never be rebuilt. The cause of this final destruction remains a mystery. Was it a natural disaster? Unlikely as other sites on the island were not similarly destroyed at this time. Most archaeologists believe the fire was a deliberate act. Perhaps it was a violent uprising of the native Minoan population, a final desperate rebellion against their Mycenaean overlords. Or perhaps the threat came from other Mycenaeans. A rival king from a powerful mainland citadel like Makini itself, may have attacked and destroyed Nos to eliminate a competing power center and consolidate his own control over the lucrative trade routes. Whatever the cause, the result was definitive. The Great Palace era on Creek was over. People would continue to live in small settlements in the ruins for a time, but the centralized power, the wealth, and the sophisticated culture that had defined the island for centuries were gone forever. In a profound historical irony, the very fire that destroyed the palace also baked the clay linear BTSTS as hard as stone, preserving for millennia the administrative records of its final conquerors. With the fall of Knossos, the island of Cree receded into a provincial backwater. To visit the palace of Knossos today is to walk directly through the vision of its discoverer. It is not a field of low, crumbling foundations, like many other ancient sites. Evans, faced with fragile ruins dissolving in the open air, made the controversial decision to reconstitute the palace. Using the modern material of his time, reinforced concrete, he raised the iconic red tapered columns, once more rebuilt the grand staircase, and repainted the walls with copies of the vibrant frescoes. While many modern archaeologists criticize these reconstructions as an imaginative and sometimes inaccurate interpretation, they provide millions of visitors with a vivid three-dimensional understanding of the palace's immense scale and beauty. To truly understand the Mayown world, however, a visitor must make 2 stops. While the palace site gives you the scale of their architecture, the true treasures, the priceless and fragile objects found within its walls, are not there. They are housed nearby in the magnificent Heraclean Archaeological Museum, a world-class institution that holds the finest collection of Minoan art and artifacts on Earth. Here, you can stand before the real, original fresco marvel at the exquisite detail of golden jewelry and gaze into the intense, unblinking eyes of the original snake goddess figurines. To know the Minoans, one must see both Evans's vision of their world and the delicate soul of their civilization. And so, our journey ends where it began, with a mystery. Despite a century of excavation and study, the Minoans retain their deepest secrets. We still cannot read their language. We can only guess at the true nature of their religion and the full story of their collapse. They remain a tantalizingly silent culture, a beautiful, unsolvable puzzle. Perhaps this is their ultimate legacy. They are a reminder that the past is not a settled story, but a constant act of rediscovery, a labyrinth of myth and memory that will continue to inspire wonder for generations to come. Thank you for joining me on this long journey into the past. I hope the story of this lost civilization has brought the beauty and mystery of the ancient world to life. I wish you a calm and peaceful night. And now, dear friend, our journey through the ancient world has come to its peaceful end. The palace corridors have fallen silent. The sacred fires burn low, and the lost kingdom of the Minoans slowly fades back into the mists of history. Thank you for spending this evening with the sleepy story. May your mind feel calm, your body feel relaxed, and your dreams carry you gently toward distant shores. Until our next quiet journey through the past, sleep well, dream peacefully, and good night.
you.